Stay tuned for Airgun Detectives. Welcome to another episode of Airgun Detectives. Today we have a special edition episode. If you guys don't know already, I try to release a video every Friday on a review, whether it be on a airgun, rifle, pistol, something of that nature. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. Today we're actually going to take the mystery out of the Sig Sauer ProForce M17 Airsoft pistol. Yes, I said Airsoft pistol. This shoots a 6mm polymer BB. Sig just came out with this. Before we get started, please do the usual. Hit the little subscribe button if you can. If you'd like to be notified about our new videos, be the first to be notified, hit the little bell. And please, always like your feedback. I'd love to see the thumbs up. So with that, let's get back to the Sig Sauer M17. I'll be honest with you, I was really excited about this. And let me tell you, if you are in law enforcement, military, if you're in some type of security service, if you are a CCW carrier, or you just are an armed citizen that wants to protect your home and your family, this gun is for you. I have a passion for this. Most of you guys know I've got a 30-year, roughly 30-year career in law enforcement as a background, and a portion of that was also in training. Right after 9/11, I trained the military police as far as the Master Arms program for the Navy, and I taught those guys for 4 years on patrol procedures, which included vehicle stops, responding to hot calls, which would be like robbery in progress, something of that nature, burglaries, things like that. So I know a little bit about training, that's for sure. And when I found out that Sig came out with this type of gun, and keep in mind, this is designed, yes, if you're an airsoft enthusiast, it'll be perfect for you. But even if you're not, this gun is going to be an incredible training tool. You know, it's one thing to be proficient about shooting at paper targets, and that's one thing. It's great if you can shoot a nice tight group like that with no pressure on you, no stress, anything like that. That's terrific. But where the training really comes in, you got to balance it. You also need to be able to train in a stressful situation. The key is, in training, is to try to put as much pressure on someone to give them the realistic atmosphere of what would be a real life situation and how are you going to react. It's like anything else. Practice and training makes perfect. Whether it's sports, anything like that, where you got to practice and practice. And what happens is you become more proficient. And what we have found out, if you do a lot of training, even if it's repetition, when you get in a stressful situation, even a life or death type situation, you automatically are going to react to your training. I personally can contest to that because I have been involved in a lethal force situation, which I actually had to use deadly force. And your training is everything. When you get pushed into a situation like that, it's your training that comes back on you. And this gun is going to give you the perfect opportunity for that. For years when we did training, this is basically what we used. A plastic gun. So when we would go through training exercise, whether playing a suspect or playing an officer, you would have a plastic gun. So you're kind of limited in the type of training that you do with that. So then the other thing they came out with is Simunition Rounds. Problem with Simunition Rounds is extremely expensive. First of all, you have to use a real gun, and then the gun has to be modified, whether it's a new slide, a recoil spring, and a barrel, even a magazine. They have to be adjusted to shoot these little guys, which are called Simunition Rounds. And they basically are almost like a, it's like a short, and then you have almost a chalk-like substance that's fired out of a gun. But I'll be honest with you, we're talking, you know, approximately about $1,000 to set up a gun for that. It's very, very expensive. And you're also limited in your training field. You're limited to a preset background, usually plywood, framed up room, something of that nature. So your training is constricted to that one specific environment. Well, guess what? With this gun right here, there's no limit to your training. Sig made this identical to the real M17. As far as it's got a full blowback slide. It's got ambidextrous slide releases. It's on both sides. They've got the beautiful 3-dot sights, and guess what? These are metal sights. They're actually metal with a nice metal slide. So I said ambidextrous, so this can be released on any side. It's got a full dropout magazine. Now this holds actually 21 rounds of the Airsoft, and I said Sig has their own Airsoft that are a .20 grain. They're like a white polymer, and they're biodegradable, which is terrific. This gun is about 8.5 inches long. It's got a 5.5-inch barrel, and it weighs about 2.6 pounds, so it's even got the realistic weight. The trigger is all metal, and it is definitely a single type action trigger, and definitely the blowback engages the trigger because you can't shoot it without, but it's tremendous trigger. Think about this. You can train in a school on a weekend with, you could take your police squad to that school and practice active shooting training with this gun, because guess what? You can fire it anywhere without worrying about your background. And if you have some of these little 6mm BBs left behind, they're biodegradable. I mean, it's the perfect scenario. You can set up training with paper targets and stands, and you can put them anywhere. Even with a pellet or a BB gun, you're limited because you have to have a background to catch those pellets and those steel BBs. With this, there's no limit. You could set up traffic stops with this, whether you want to arm a suspect with this gun, or you want to, obviously the officers can be armed with this gun. And you know what's amazing? This gun retails for about 180 bucks. And it takes either CO2, or you can get a separate magazine for the green gas. The green gas, that's kind of like it's almost like how you fill a lighter. It just has a gas can and you just fill up the magazine. But CO2s are just tremendous because they're very inexpensive, and the BBs are very inexpensive. So whether if you were a small department, a larger department, this is affordable training. And as I keep emphasizing, the training is not limited to one specific structure. You can do the training anywhere with this. And the officers are going to get officers, or as I said, military, whatever. It's funny is Sig already contracted with the U.S. Coast Guard on a 229 model like this, and they're going to use that actually for training. So let's show how this thing performs. We'll go through that process, and then we're going to come back and talk about this more, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the training. So stay tuned for the next segment. We got our M17 here, our Airsoft. Let's just see what type of velocity. Sig's claiming around, I think around 350 feet per second with a .20 grain. So we're actually using the Sig CO2, Sig Sauer CO2s, and we're actually using the Sig BBs, the .20 grain. So let's see what type of velocity we get. Let's just shoot 5 over the crony and see what we get. So shot number 1, 356. Shot number 2, 348. Shot number 3, 354. Shot number 4, 343, and one more, 361. Not bad. Absolutely shooting what they're claiming. So you can see what the average is there. Let's move on to the next segment. We have our Sig M17 here. We're going to do a little bit of accuracy test. We're actually shooting the 12-gram Sig Sauer CO2s, and we're shooting the 0.2 gram polymer plastic BBs. They're the Sig Sauer also. Let's see how accurate we are. We're about our usual 30 feet back, so we're going to test it with our little Airsoft and see what type of grouping we do. We'll shoot, I don't know, maybe we'll shoot 5, 10 shots. Let's just see how well we do, and we'll go from there. All right, so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow, that trigger is phenomenal. And what a group for Airsoft. That's pretty amazing. All right, let's move on to the next segment. We got our M17 here, and let's do a little bit of a trigger test on this. I mean, the trigger on this thing is phenomenal. It's actually a metal trigger. So let's see, we got our trusty Lyman trigger gauge here. Let's see what type, let's reset that baby. Let's see what type of trigger weight we get. These are long curly triggers, so. Okay, that shows 6 pounds and 2/10 of an ounce. Let's try another one. So like I said, these triggers are, because they have such a radical angle, sometimes they're a little tough. Okay, there's 5 pounds, 7 ounces. So 5 pounds, 7 ounces. But yeah, it's a phenomenal filling trigger, I have to tell you. All right, let's move on to the next segment. Actually, now we get to do a little tactical training right in our own backyard. Watch this. Okay, it's not too often we get to do tactical training in our own backyard. So this is just an example of little scenarios that you could set up. So, oh geez. Let the hostage go. Let her go. Drop your gun. Oh, geez. Drop the gun. Drop the gun. That's just a quick, that was just a quick sample of scenarios that you could set up in your own backyard. There's just no limit to the training exercise that you can put together. All right, let's move on to our final segment. Okay, let's wrap this up with our conclusion here. So, our Sig, our ProForce M17 here, I'm telling you, this is probably one of the most realistic air guns that I've fired. I said air guns, and I mean that. That means between BB, pellet, and Airsoft, which this is obviously the 6mm plastic. This is the most realistic gun I've fired. The blowback on this thing is tremendous. Then let me show you something else that is really amazing. Is this trigger. I want you to see, watch the take up on this trigger. I mean, it literally, it's so realistic. You barely put any pressure on that thing, and look at that thing go. Again, I'm going to show you that one more time, maybe from this angle. But watch the take up on this. You barely pull that trigger, just enough. It's so realistic. And the blowback, look how far back that blows back. And I love the fact that it has the slide release on both sides. What a terrific gun. You also have the rail on this, and if you didn't know, Sig has actually kind of released their own red dot optic for this, in which will go right on this whole system, which is terrific. Okay, so the other thing I just can't talk enough about is the training benefits. You saw how I set up the little scenarios. That could be done, like I said, anywhere. If you could borrow a movie theater, if you could borrow a school for a weekend, which that could happen, you could set up those little paper targets anywhere, and you don't have to worry about your background. So those are great shoot, don't shoot scenarios. Those in your law enforcement military have done those before, and you know exactly how those work. But you can actually create that environment in potentially a school or a mall or somewhere where there could be a potential threat in which you could train for. Because active shooting training is a big thing now, and this would really help in that process. Keep in mind, when you want to train, you want to create the most realistic environment you can. This is going to allow you to do that, without a doubt. Other than that, let's talk about the performance. This has the hop up, which you can actually adjust the spin on the BB. And with that, you saw it was shooting just a little bit low at point of aim. And what a group! I'm telling you, we were shooting that from, you know, our 10 meters, or about 32 feet back, and you saw the group that we were getting with that. Amazing. So you got accuracy, you've got the build, realistic feel. This is a terrific gun. Goes right in the duty holster. And like I said, they're making other models. They made a 229 that the U.S. Coast Guard is going to train with. Think about that. They could do training on boats and things like that, and actually be able to experience shooting rounds. So, the training benefits, and then not to mention let's talk about the cost. This is a very inexpensive way that you can get tremendous training. We talked about what the Simunition Rounds go. Try to take some Simunition guns and go into a school. You can't do it. You'll mark up the school, not to mention the rounds are noisy, so you're going to make a lot of sound. So that's why you need a designated training environment for that. Again, with this, you don't. So I do have a passion for this, for being in training for so many years. So overall, I'm going to have to give this gun 5 stars. And you know me, I'm very chintzy when it comes to 5 stars. I think there's only maybe 2 other guns out there that I've ever given 5 stars as. This is getting 5 stars. And I don't care who you are, as I said before, whether you're law enforcement, military, whether you're a CCW guy, where you're just a homeowner, wants to improve your skills in case of a situation, this you can do it with, because you don't have to overly worry about your background as far as being able to catch the rounds. And this practice makes perfect. Remember, how you train is how you will respond in a stressful situation. You want to develop muscle memory, and this can do it. So with that, I want to thank you for tuning in to a special edition of Airgun Detectives. This is where we take the mystery out of the airgun. And until next time.